Thanks everybody for joining us today. Today I have a very special guest, Mike Lamonthe. He is a psychology coach and mentor when it comes to trading. And so he's definitely someone I wanted to bring on the show because if you guys have been keeping up, we all deal with a lot of psychology. That's like main focus when it comes to trading. The strategy is easy to find. It's something you can work on your own, but the mental game is probably, like, in my opinion, 80% of this game. So, Mike, I appreciate you joining me today and being open to be on the show, man. Thanks a lot.
Awesome, man. Real pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. So can you give us a little background real quick on, what got you into trading and really what got you into the game of psychology, the focus there?
Oh, man. Let's see. How much time do you got? So I started trading 20 years ago. And that's not to say that I started trading successfully 20 years ago. Well, when I started back then, my idea was, all right, you got some money, you put it into this thing called stock market, you wait X amount of time, and more magically pops out the other end, right? And that's what
Right.
I thought. And of course, it works that way, right?
Right.
Yeah, not even close. But I learned this thing the hard way. So so I go to my local bank, right? Because I thought that that's where you go to trade. So I saved up like 5 grand at the time. This was 1999, and I go to my bank and I'm like, hey, I the financial kiosk in there. I want to trade some stocks. And they're like, oh, well, you actually don't. Stocks are kind of risky. What you want is this, right? And so they hand me some prospectuses for some mutual funds. I'm like, oh, all right. I start flipping through. 5 minutes later, the manager walks by and he's like, hey, man, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm reading this. A guy just handed me. Nobody reads those. No? Okay. They flip through it a little faster and it's just like, all right, I'll take this one, and this one. And it was a couple of stock funds and a bond fund. And I thought I was being smart.
Yeah.
Thought that I had professionals managing it for me. Loads of diversification. I wasn't planning to take this thing out until after I had graduated, right? And I was going to graduate in the summer of 2002. And like, kind of funny how all this stuff lines up, right? So I'm buying in the biggest bubble in history. No idea about NASDAQ or dot-com bubbles or any of that stuff at this point. I'm just thinking like money in, more money pops out. And, 6 months in, I decide to look at my account and I'm like, wow, it's up 10%, right? 10% dot-com bubble, like insane. But at the time, I had no idea. So 10%, I'm a genius. I'm going to be able to buy a car when I get out of school there. This is going to be great. So time goes by, studies start to get a little bit more intense, and I forget about the stock market because, hey, people are managing it for me. All the great stuff, diversification, professionals, yada, yada. 2002 rolls around. I go to pull my money out, and I didn't have the 10 grand or so that I thought that I was going to have. Didn't have 8, didn't have 7. I didn't even have the 5 that I started with. I was down to 4. And I'm like, yo, what the hell happened? Loads of diversification, professionals managing it for me, and 4 years. How the hell do I have less than what I started with? So I took the money out, went home, and I cried. And and I put the market down for a little while, but I still had this idea that you could make money in stocks. And I just kept on trying again and again different things. I started to listen to guys like Jim Cramer's show, right? I got into that, read his books. That didn't work for me. Later on, the thing that finally did work for me was the first book that really did work for me. This book called How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill, right?
I know that book.
A great book, right?
Yeah. Actually, my opinion is it taught me I don't know a lot. When I first read it, was the first book I read too.
Yeah, and that was your first book that you read?
That was the first, on stocks. Yep.
Oh my God! Wow! That's a gold mine right there, man. To start with that, like, good for you. Yeah. So I read that and it finally made sense, right? Like, well, let's model what the stocks that ran up 500, 1,000% or more have done. Just focus only on those, and then try to find other stocks that have that kind of potential to do the same. Makes a lot of sense. So I started trying to do that and doing everything. I was treating it like a cookbook, right? And then that's the wrong way to do it, right? Like you don't clone success, you model success. Thankfully, what I later on found was this group called the New York City Investors Business Daily Meetup Group. So, are you familiar with Investors Business Daily?
I mean, I'm not familiar. No, I'm not. Go ahead.
And so Investors Business Daily is a newspaper. The guy that wrote How to Make Money in Stocks, William O'Neill, he founded that newspaper, and they set up these meetups all around the country, right? So, and it's a volunteer group. So I go to it. It's being run by a hedge fund manager, a couple of full-time traders, and they're giving their perspective of how they're trading using Bill's system, canceling. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And another thing was that none of these guys are clones of one another. They're all doing it in their own unique way. So then that told me, like, all right, so in order to make this thing work as a part-timer, right? Like I still have my full-time job trying to make this trading thing work. I needed to find a way to do it myself. So I took a little bit from this guy, a little bit from that guy, a little bit from that guy, what I was already learning from O'Neill, and then just over the course of a year, like, all right, well, let's make this thing work. And so they're doing this, I need to do this. And after a year, I went back to them. I'm like, hey, like I learned a lot from you guys. Here's what I did. Well, what do you think? And what they told me was, this is great. Well, we actually want to take some of what you're doing and incorporate it into what we're doing. I'm like, get the hell out of here. Like, I'm just some kid in the audience. Well, why? Right? Like, you guys are pros. Well, what could I possibly offer? And they're like, well, you're doing things in a more efficient way. And like, you found some things that are efficient that we didn't consider because they didn't have to. So then that's kind of what got me on the path of the not just psychology, but also teaching and helping other people that are in this similar boat. And that a lot of this game has to do with mindset. And then I started to learn about other guys in the mindset space. And in trading, there's not that many, right? Like, we've got Van Tharp, we've got Mark Douglas, we've got Eckert, right? Well, like there's just a handful. Then I started to get into other great psychologists and mindset people, right? Well, like some recent ones, Tony Robbins, guys like Brendan Burchard. He's one that I've been studying a lot recently. People like let's see, Mel Robbins. She's fantastic. David Goggins.
Yep.
Have you read David Goggins' book?
Yep, I have.
Fantastic. Like I think that there's so much of what he says that's directly relatable to trading. It's uncanny, right? Like put your trading cap on and read that book. It's amazing.
It's a great book, man. It's cool. I appreciate you sharing me your story and giving us a little highlight of where you come from. Like, actually, I don't know if you have a podcast yourself or do you have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I've got a podcast. So I've got two shows. Right, I've got an interview show myself that I call Trader's Mind Chat, and I've got this new show that I started called Ask a Trader. Right, like so I'll just like people ask me a lot of questions, so I'll send them a tweet or answer it quickly on Instagram, and then I'll go deeper into the best questions and do a YouTube show.
I brought that up because I heard one of those episodes in that your story, you were talking about parts of your story. And so it's just, just you hit on some things that were very unique. And I'm just curious about, you immediately went to studying all these other types of psychology people when it comes to trading, but then also outside of trading. And so you were mentioning that like you see overlap, right? What were some things that you felt like, you mentioned David Goggin specifically, that really can hit a lot of us home?
All right. So let's see. So at the end of or towards the end of the book, right? Like David Goggins, he's a retired Navy SEAL, U.S. Army Ranger, and he's this ultra marathoner, right? Like holds like tons of world records. So at one point in the story, he's talking about how he's trying to apply for Delta Force, right? Like this elite group within the Army Rangers. And he's going through the test, and like he's miles ahead of people physically, right? and he's got the right mindset too. Like he's visualizing himself at the end of the journey and how great it's going to be. But he's daydreaming, and when he finally snaps himself out of it, he's like, "Oh shit! I didn't set my backstops right." Like so, how he should have been like on course. Like he's kind of like veering off this way, and he finds out later on that he's a mile or two off, tries to double back, and he ends up not getting into Delta Force because of it. Now, as a trader, I see price action the same way. I see how price can run up. We're in this trade, it's running up, it's running up. You could start looking at your P&L. You could start to think of like, wow, man, like look at all the profit that I'm going to have. But if you don't continuously raise your stop and give yourself multiple ways for the market to pay you, then you're going to end up giving all that profit back or a good amount of it back. Like I like to think of the market as trades as every single trade ends in divorce, right? Like no trade is going to be held forever. So the market could either take the money or you could take the money. So we need to give ourselves multiple ways to get paid. And a lot of people get married to winning trades, right? Because you're in the trade, it's doing what you want, it's treating you real well. You don't want to part ways with it. But if you start to think of the market whereas selling as it giving you multiple ways to get paid, then it shifts the mindset a little bit, and you need to start giving yourself ways to get paid from the market because. Well, number one, that's the way that you're ultimately going to win. But two, the market is an infinite stream of opportunity, and that's something that that's one of my core trading beliefs. Infinite stream of opportunity. Okay, great. If that's true, why do I need to hold on to this winner with a death grip because it's going to go to the moon? I want to hold on to this trade so long as it's working and it's doing what I want. And how do I know that? By setting up trailing stops. Backstops, like what Goggin should have had, having multiple profit targets along the way. How am I going to sell into strength? And then, I want to cut my losses too. But I'm giving myself 3 ways to win, 1 way to cut my losses short, and it works out.
Yeah, absolutely. What talking about, some challenges when it comes to trading. It seems so as a coach, you talk to tons of people, I'm sure, and you have a lot of interactions with your Twitter, with your Instagram. And so I'm curious on what is a challenge that comes up that's very common, but is also a real challenge that you see that is common with even tenure traders. You know what I'm saying? Like people who found their consistency, and then the people who haven't found it. Is there a common challenge that they both face? I'm just curious.
I think one of the most common challenges or common theme recently has come around journaling. Like it's one of those things that's a pain in the ass. Nobody wants to do it.
Yes.
But it's the self-accountability, right? Like if we want to improve, and this is one of the things that I love about O'Neill too, right? Like it's one of the things that fewer people highlight, but I think that it's a big part of the gold in that book is that. Do you remember the story about when he was telling a kid about fish, right? Like how do you study fish?
No,
right?
so I thought I completely botched that because I read a different book. It was like an orange book that was like this thick. So I don't know I don't think it was, maybe it was not William O'Neill. It was like trading for a living, but that's why it kind of rang the bell.
Ah, okay, yeah, no, O'Neill is an orange book too, but anyway, like in this book, like he said that the way to study a fish is by watching the fish, right? Like you don't need to read books on the fish, like you study the fish and you allow it to teach you about what a fish does and behaves, right? So in that, you're studying the market, you're allowing the market to tell you about it. And you also need to allow yourself to teach you about yourself and how you're interacting with the market. The way that you're going to learn that is by journaling, right? Like you're going to see the market slightly different than me, slightly different from the next guy, and you have your own goals and objectives. And we can reverse engineer how to get to those goals and objectives. Like there's lots of people that we could model success after, but we all have slightly differing beliefs about the market and also about money. Right? So you want a common one? This is a common one.
Yeah.
Money beliefs, right?
Yep.
Well, many of our trading beliefs are beliefs that we opt into, right? Like, well, we read a book. This sounds good. I'm going to follow this, right? And you're opting into those beliefs. A lot of our money beliefs came from when we were kids, right? Like they came
Yep.
from our parents, from our environment, from grandparents, from whoever, right? And so at that point, like we're just a sponge, right? Like getting all this stuff, and I grew up poor, right? When I was 6 years old, I was homeless, right? Like a real rough childhood. Parents were divorced, all this kind of things, and so my money beliefs were absolute garbage for a long time, and until like I became aware of that, and I started to dig into, well, where did my money beliefs come from? The money doesn't grow on trees, all that kind of stuff. That like I need to become aware of it, and I need to figure out and see how is this affecting my trading, and what's going to happen if I hold on to these beliefs, right? Because think about it, like if you're in a trade and you know based off of your trading plan and what you've read in X, Y, and Z books that this is how you can manage the trade, and you believe that, but there's a deeper rooted belief about money, like that
Yeah.
money's scarce, right? And you see this trade going up, and you know it that you're supposed to let it run, but money's scarce, opportunity is scarce. Like, well, you're gonna fuck up the trade, right? Like you're either going to take it off too quickly, or if you're looking for a trade, like money's scarce and like you need to make something happen now. Like those are like a lot of that is rooted in bad money beliefs. So it's in creating awareness of what your beliefs are that you could then start to go through them and be like, okay, where does this belief come from? How does it serve me? What does it get me into? What does it get me out of? What's going to happen? What's my goal? And what's going to happen if I continue to hold on to this limiting belief?
That's
Right?
awesome, man. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I want to do something different with this episode. If we could, can we stay on this one topic for a minute? And I
Yeah.
feel like we could probably do the whole episode on this, and I think we should because you're hitting it on the head. Belief in yourself, belief in how you believe in money is huge. But like it's one thing to say that, and it's one thing to understand it, right? And so when you say, let's say, because I grew up and I didn't have the experience you had, and but I did grow up in a rough neighborhood and slowly worked our way up. But like I had that same that I still have that belief, I believe, where in the back of my head somewhere there's like that subconscious of it's scarce. It's some kind of belief like that. What are different beliefs that people have? Let's first start off there. What are the different beliefs? There's a scarce. Is there another one or another two? I don't know.
Oh, there could be any number of permutations of like it's scarce, like it doesn't exist, like the market is out to get me.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. To that, like it's an infinite stream of opportunity. Money is abundant. The universe has got your back. Uh, all these kind of things, right? And
Yeah.
the great part, or one of the great things about being human, is that we get to decide. Right? Like it's all ultimately a choice. It's like, what story do we want to tell ourselves?
So how do you? So you're talking about journaling and you write down. What are you journaling specifically in
For the
terms of
beliefs
your thoughts?
exercise.
Yeah, like to kind of see your thoughts. I mean, it's one thing. Like for myself, like I just journal what my plan is, how the plan turned out, what I can do to improve, and then and maybe a section sometimes of like how I felt during the trade. Like, is that what you mean, or is there something
Okay.
else?
So this is all like two different things, right? So first we want to come up with the beliefs exercise, right? So that's like you're writing out what your trading beliefs are, what your money beliefs are. It's very similar. This is another thing that's kind of similar to the Goggins book too. Like you remember the whole part where he's having you like write out like the taking inventory of all the negative stuff that happened to you.
Yes.
Same thing, right? Like same thing, but within the context of trading and within the context of money. So do that. So you literally have like hundreds of beliefs, like all swimming around up here. Take an hour or so, like write them all out. All right, and then start questioning them. Right, like so. Part of it is you've already figured out what your goal is, right? And
Right.
you want to figure out why this goal is important to you. So from there, like now you have this goal, understand why it's important to you. You've got emotion tied to this thing, so you're invested in the goal, making it happen. So you go through your trading beliefs, and then you get to see like where did this belief come from? Oh well, this belief came from a course that I took. Okay, is this belief serving me towards this new goal? Well, actually, it's not. But I paid a lot of money for that course. I spent like $1,000 on that course, and I don't want to toss money away, right? Money's scarce,
Yep.
right? Like so you could kind of see like how things start to get interconnected. So it's like going through that,
Yes.
and then starting to reconcile your different beliefs, and then thinking through, okay, what do I want, right? Like the goal, what's keeping me from getting the goal, and what's going to happen to me if I continue to hold on to these limiting beliefs.
So you write down your beliefs, and then obviously, like on David Goggins, it's exactly what you're saying. You write down everything you believe. So there's going to be contradiction beliefs within that
Oh
column.
yeah.
So, but it's easy to say like which ones are serving me and which ones are not. But when you say this is not serving me, how do you suggest people to eliminate that rather than just scratch it out? You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like it doesn't really get eliminated in the sense of like poof, it's gone,
Right.
and you never think about it again. It's kind of a lot like you remember a lot like being a kid believing in Santa Claus.
Yes.
Do you still believe in Santa Claus, or like?
I'm gonna teach my kids to believe in it.
Right. Me too. Me
Right.
too. But like, if somebody tells you that Santa Claus is at the door, like you're not like bolting
Oh yeah.
downstairs, like because you're expecting a bunch of gifts there, right? So it's kind of similar to that, where you have a belief and you're taking the charge out of that belief, right? And so,
Yes.
it, it's kind of like it.
So
If you
beliefs
think,
have energy, basically. They have
yes,
energy. And
yes,
it's
it's
like
like a
Mark
tank.
Dulles. Doesn't Mark Dulles say something about energy and beliefs? Like
Yep,
thoughts or something? Okay, that makes sense.
yep.
So they have energy. And then, so the goal is to drain the energy slowly to where it's always going to be there, but it's not taken over because this has more energy, right? Is that
Exactly. It's like a dormant belief. And so, because there's so many beliefs that we have, and if we were just consciously aware of everything at every moment, like your head would explode. Like so much is in your subconscious, and it's those subconscious beliefs, like the limiting money beliefs that we mentioned earlier. Like if you're unaware of that and it has a strong charge to it, then it could overpower your trading belief. And you're sitting there thinking, well, why do I keep on making the same mistake again and again?
right?
Well, it's rooted in a belief.
Mhm.
And so it's up to us to figure out what that is and then discharge it. And a great way to discharge limiting beliefs too. I did this exercise at a Tony Robbins event, Unleash the Power Within. You ever hear that?
Yes, I have. I read the book, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love
Awesome.
Tony Robbins. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. So at his event, he has this thing called the Dickens exercise. Like you remember that Charles Dickens story, the Christmas Carol, where they get visited by three ghosts and they're doing like the past, the present, the future.
Yep.
So at the event, he goes through this whole big thing, and you're writing down like three main limiting beliefs, right? Like not trading really, but just for your life. And so like I'm writing down my three like big beliefs that I'm trying to eliminate to get past to this goal that I believe now is possible, right? And so you have these beliefs, and it's like, well, what's going to happen to you if you hold on to these beliefs, right? And so like at this point, like you understand that holding on to the limiting beliefs is what's preventing you from getting to your goal. But you're not just like picturing it, like you're thinking about, well, where am I going to be in 5 years? What's going to happen to the people around me that I care about if I'm still holding on to this limiting set of beliefs? what's going to happen in 10 years, in 20 years, right? Like you make holding on to these negative beliefs like so painful that you just kind of rip them out,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And you refuse to hold on to it because like you see like how devastating and destroying it is to hold on to these negative beliefs. Now, okay, great. What's a better belief to put in its spot? Because our mind is kind of like a garden, right? Like you go through it, you don't know what's there, you haven't attended to it for a while. Like you got some plants, you got some weeds, you got to till all the soil, right? Like get the weeds out from the root, but now you've got to plant something new there because if you don't, anything can grow there, right? Like maybe another weed, who the hell knows? So
Right.
we want to plant better beliefs in there, right? So then we start to come up with, all right, well, well, rather than this limiting belief, what can we now believe, right? And that'll be, it all depends on whatever the thing was that you just ripped out, you would start to put in. So like, rather than money being scarce, you might believe that, hey, no, money is actually abundant, and the way that I'm going to get it through my trading is by following this plan, this proven plan, and just execute, right? And operate like a casino. Like I don't care if this trade is a winner or a loser because I know that over 100 trades, over 1,000 trades, like I'm coming out ahead.
Yep. I like it. I like it. That's a great analogy. I could tell we read a lot of the same books because the garden analogy, I've read that somewhere, and then just so much what you said, just adding it all together. And it just kind of brings up the whole aspect of why we should all be reading, right? I mean, because like you put together all of this knowledge from what you've learned, and you also learn it from teaching your own students, right? And mentoring others. So it's just great. I appreciate you sharing that. It helps enlighten myself because you're just sharing some things and re-highlighting things that I need to go back and think about it for this episode. So I really appreciate that. I want to know just from your point of view, what would be your best advice if you could go back in time, right? And go talk to yourself and give yourself some advice right after you found out that you took your money out and you realized that, it was in there for, X amount of years and I was actually down. After that time, what would you tell yourself to prepare and become get to where you are today a little bit faster? What would you say?
Coaches and mentors, right? Like don't try to do all this shit alone. Well, one of the big things that I had back then that I needed to get over was trust issues. Right? Like I had a lot of trust issues, especially like growing up in the situation that I did.
Yeah.
Trust issues for authority, trust issues for myself. Like I kind of thought that, yeah, well, like people were out to get me, and if people wanted to offer advice or like sell something, like people were just kind of like out to get your money, and that's true. That like some people are like selling you nonsense in this industry. It's unfortunate, but it's not true of everyone. Like there's a lot of really good people out there, and like it's getting past that fear. Like everything that we want is on the other side of fear. And so part of that is allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And so having coaches, having mentors, getting around the more positive people, improving my environment is a major one, and this is a lot of stuff that I put out something recently too about this, right? Like a top 10 of what I would have told myself back then.
Okay. The trust one really sticks out for me. The trust one and trusting yourself. Any advice for people, because that's hard. I mean, especially when you first start trading, you're taking a lot of losses, right? And a lot of people do. And so how do you trust yourself? Like, how do you learn that?
So that's a great question, right? You asked a lot of great questions.
Thanks.
No, thank you. So sometimes, one of the reasons that people don't trust themselves, or in that context, people say that, I'm fearful, right?
Right.
Well, fear is not a good or a bad thing. Like it's just an emotion. Sometimes fear is a good thing. right? Like back when we were living in caves and there was a tiger running outside, it was a good thing to be afraid of that because it was
Yeah.
going to eat us, right? So yeah, be afraid of the tiger. Be afraid of touching the hot stove. Now, when you were a kid and you didn't know that, oh, what's it mean to touch the hot stove? Like you didn't know any better, right? Like so, you touch the hot stove, you learned. If I told you to go close your eyes, right? Like so, here's what I want to do. I'm gonna pay you $10 million to do this, right? Like right now, close your eyes, walk downstairs, go to the busiest highway during rush hour, and walk straight across. And if
Heck
you
no.
make it across alive, I'll pay you, right? Like, would you do it?
Heck no, I wouldn't.
Yeah, because you know that right? Like, but if you told a kid that doesn't know any better, like hell yeah, like let me go make. So sometimes fear is a good thing. So sometimes fear is telling us that we don't have the experience to do something. Sometimes fear is trying to protect us. So rather than just being like, oh, like I'm afraid to take this trade and pointing to like fear of missing out on all these things, I think that it's better to try to understand the emotion. Like, where is it coming from? Try to lead the emotion, right? And
Yeah.
when we have a better understanding of emotion, we can start to see how emotion manifests itself on the chart in mass groups. You could start to see how Tesla's on this parabolic run, how Beyond was on this parabolic run, Bitcoin, all these ones. Like you could see euphoria like before your eyes, and you could figure out ways to capitalize on it.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And before I have one more thing to ask because you brought it up at the very beginning, and usually I like to bring it up at that time, but I completely forgot. But I do want to bring it up now, and that is you mentioned something about there's endless opportunity, and during that context, when you mentioned that, you were saying that you have people who are just like, oh, I got to get in this now. But why are you feeling that way when you know there's endless opportunity? And so and so you have people just rushing in, right? And just trying to like emotionally, FOMO, getting in there and taking a loss. But if you have this other belief of there's endless opportunities. So I'm just curious on, and I don't know if I'm going to word this right. If there's endless opportunity, why is it so challenging for us to not to because FOMO is a real thing. Like, why is it so challenging for us not to move forward past that and just and be like, okay, I can pass this up. There's endless opportunity. And does that make sense? I don't know if I worded that right.
No, it does make sense. I think that well, it comes back to beliefs, number one, and like so. If I'm holding that belief that there's endless opportunity, then it's hard to also hold the belief that I need to rush, right? So if I'm have this belief that like if I understand like so this is where like you could read something and you conceptually understand it versus like putting it into action, right? Like so
Yeah.
if you are trying to put that into action and you can't, then it's like, well, why? Right? And then we've got a little bit of work to do. And like that, then that's where like the writing out all the trading beliefs, all the money beliefs, like trying to go through and being like Sherlock Holmes going through your beliefs, like that's where you're going to start to unearth some of this other stuff. Um,
And I apologize for interrupting here, but I now I know very clearly what I was trying to ask, and you're gonna be like, dude, that's not the question, but it's this. There's endless opportunity, but we're told, or I don't know if you tell this to people, but a lot of people say the thing of stick to one or two strategies, right?
sure.
So there's endless opportunity, stick to one or two strategies, and then here's the thing. I believe I'm a belief of stick to one or two strategies, by the way, but
Okay.
you have people but there's that side of you where it's like you stick to one or two strategies. What if these one or two pop up twice a week? You know what I'm saying? Maybe once a week sometimes. Maybe doesn't pop up at all. But there's endless opportunity. So you just want to like, am I missing out? Like you just now, does that put a better picture of what I'm trying to say?
All right. So it's fear of missing the trade that you should have taken.
I guess so. It's more of like what would you tell someone who is dealing with that challenge of, man, I'm trying to stick to this one strategy, but it only pops up once a week, or sometimes it pops up 4 times, but most times it's like once. But there's in this opportunity, how to prevent myself from trading or over trading and trying to go
How,
into someone else's lane.
well, how are you becoming aware of this opportunity? Are you just sitting there watching it on the chart all day long? Does an alert go off? Do you do your homework on the weekend and then you're placing an order with your broker and letting that go? What's the process?
That's a good
I would be
question.
more interested in learning about the person's process and then try to engineer how they can improve that process, right?
I love
Because
that.
yeah,
That's great that you asked that, because immediately what I thought of is the only reason most people feel that, and me when I'm guilty of that, is whenever I see someone else, right? I see someone, instead of it being my process, it's because you got influence from Twitter or you saw someone else post something. Does that make sense?
yes. So, do we have time for me to give you one more
Let's
insight?
do it. Let's do it.
Awesome. So, I just gave this bit to a client earlier today, and this is something that I started using within myself within the past, I'd say maybe 3-ish months.
Okay.
So, back to Brendan Bouchard. He has this release meditation technique where between your activities, you pause for about 2 minutes, right? And he suggests pausing once an hour, right? So we're not doing anything for longer than an hour. So pause after an hour, and then get up, move around. Like if you're just sitting for a long time, like get up, like move, get a glass of water, go to the can, come back, and then do this release meditation technique, right? So very simple. You just close your eyes. I have a timer on my watch, and then I just repeat to myself, release, 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 release. Just very rhythmically like that. I don't repeat it aloud, it's in my head. But as I'm doing that, I'm releasing the tension from my shoulders, from my jaw, from my back, from my legs, physically releasing tension. If thoughts pop into my head, I'm releasing those too. Whatever I was doing before, like that's in the past, it's released. Then, all right, great, 2 minutes is up. Now set intention for whatever the next thing is going to be. So if we're going to continue trading, great. Now we're setting intention for that. If we're just getting started trading, set the intention for that. So a couple of questions is what am I going to be doing now, right? So, I'm going to be trading. But okay, what does my A game look like for this activity? So that's an interesting question. What does my A game look like? Well, adhering to my trading plan is listening to this person on Twitter part of my trading plan? No. Okay. Is that what my A game looks like? No. Who needs me on my A game right now? Well, for trading, I need me on my A game. Well, I need to. This is my primary source of income, so my family needs me on my A game. I know what my A game looks like. I know who needs me on my A game. Am I ready to go in? Yeah, let's get this done. Great. So now, I'm going in with this intention. I'm energized. I'm refocused, and I'm just doing it for an hour. I'm not doing this for a marathon of 2, 3, 4 hours. Just like every hour, taking this break, resetting, refocusing, keeping my energy up, and I'm able to perform a lot better in this way and not be distracted by things that I shouldn't be distracted by.
Nice, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's like resetting. It's like a resetting every
Yeah.
hour, which is nice because you got recentered and getting back to neutral, or at least getting back to where you need to get to be focused on your goals rather than getting lost into something else. So I appreciate you saying that, because I'm actually working on getting back to neutral this week. I took a break from trading, so thanks for saying that. One thing before we go, I wanna ask you, if anyone has any questions, anyone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So they could go to my website, merrillwealth.com. There's a ton of free information on there. They could follow me on Instagram, Twitter, StockTwits. All of it is the handle at Michael G. Lamothe. And yeah, that's it. I'm very accessible, man.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Michael. I really appreciate you joining me today, and man, you've been a lot of help. Thanks, guys.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.